me when we should get started.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. So now that we're jumping into remote access meeting attendance, just some conference call etiquette. So if you ask a question, we're going to ask that you, if you're the presenter, to maybe repeat the question, so that way those that are attending via phone can actually hear what was asked. Try to keep the chatter in the background as quiet as you can, so that way we don't have a lot of white noise for the callers that are listening in. This is what they're listening on, these things. And we will go ahead and get started. We have Dr. Kapoor here to talk about hospice. And are you able to pull up your PowerPoint from there?
I didn't do a PowerPoint because I have 10 minutes.
That's fine.
I'm trying to stick to 10 minutes. Of course, be happy to take any questions. But what I did was I typed up 2 pages of the points which I thought I was going to bring up, And they're very randomly arranged. And I just labeled it as nuts and bolts support for hospice. Basically trying to get some feedback from some of our intake nurses and see where we have an opportunity to work a little better together. So I'm Dr. Kapoor. I'm one of the medical directors with SHM Hospice. And, I thought I would list the number 1, say the different diagnoses we use for hospice. Traditionally cancer was the main. Now cancer is about 40%. 60% of cases are related to the conditions, which I have listed down there. I just want to make one point in this, that when you look at patients with Alzheimer's disease, a lot of times our nurses are following the saying the doctor has documented severe dementia. And that's the diagnosis we should use. However, what hospice considers severe dementia is somebody who doesn't talk, doesn't walk, is incontinent of bladder and bowel. If they do talk, it's either nonsensical talk or less than 6 words a day, which means yes, no, okay, it's fine, but really shouldn't be able to carry out a conversation, shouldn't be able to tell you their address, shouldn't be able to tell you their date of birth. That's end-stage dementia. So that's the basic stuff, okay? And then, not only that alone doesn't suffice. In addition to that, you need to have 1 out of 4 things associated with that to consider somebody with dementia to be hospice appropriate. And that is weight loss in the last 6 months. You need to have difficulty with swallowing or aspiration pneumonia histories, pyelonephritis, and they're listed. I have handouts and I have listed. I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points. And decubes. And minded decubes should be stage 3 or 4. So stage 2 decubes don't work. They don't have the same comorbidity as stage 3 or 4. 3 or 4 is fine. So that is why we go by a scale which is called a FAST scale, and that's the last thing I have attached to your slide. The FAST scale is a functional scale for dementia patients, and they have to be a FAST 7C plus one of the qualifying things which I have just told you. So the problem is when patients are in the hospital, they don't communicate a lot because they're in an unfamiliar surrounding. They don't move around because they're in bed. So it's very hard to know their baseline. So before you consider somebody appropriate for hospice with an end-stage Alzheimer's diagnosis, please make sure to find what was their baseline from the family. So if they were bedbound, not talking, not walking, incontinent of bladder and bowel, sure. So they meet the basic criteria. Plus, then you see, do you have any of those 4 things? The weight loss, pyelonephritis, aspiration pneumonias, decubes. If you have any one of those 4, then they would be very appropriate. They will meet the Medicare guidelines. The second point which I wanted to mention was, when you guys have patients you feel are appropriate for hospice and you put in a consult, my humble suggestion, folded hands, is to please have the initial conversation regarding appropriateness for hospice with the patient and family yourself. You're welcome to take the hospice nurse along with you. The hospice nurse can give you information about the hospice program, but they don't have the clinical skill sets which you have. they can't answer the medical questions, which you have knowledge of. So they can tell the family what hospitals will provide, what they will not provide, how this can be a beneficial service to them. But the initial conversation, you're in a position of power. You're in a position of power. A nurse is not, So they reach out to you differently compared to what a hospice nurse would have to deal with. So please have that initial conversation so that you can answer their queries, and then let the hospice staff take over from there. The third bullet point I just wanted to mention here is that when a patient goes to a nursing home with hospice care, hospice does not provide the room and board for that patient. So they have to pay out of pocket for the stay there, which is anywhere in today's day and age from $4,000 to $8,000 a month. Okay? It's a big financial responsibility based on where the patient is going, So when you are sending people to nursing homes and you say, I'm going to send you with hospice, a lot of times when they come to the nursing home, they're quite shocked that they have to pay for the room and board. So just in case something comes up in your conversation, just make sure that you have this knowledge, base that if they ask you, say no, then you will be responsible for it. Hospice does not provide 24-hour care, so patient does not have one-on-one care. In fact, for someone to be appropriate for hospice, it's necessary for them to have a primary caregiver. The primary caregiver can be a family member, can be a friend, can be hired, anybody. So they don't have but they are available 24/7 on the phone. And so the family member can call hospice and say, I'm having this problem, what can we do? They will guide them. If it's necessary to make a visit, the nurse will come out and make a visit. The family will not be with them 24/7. So if they take a patient of Alzheimer's disease, for example, who's bedbound, incontinent, if they need the basic hygiene care, they need to be changed. A family member or a kid, a paid caregiver has to do it. Hospice would be happy to do that during their visits, but they are not going to be there 24/7 to change them all day. Typically, a nurse visits twice a week and PRN. Then you have services like social workers, chaplains, who visit at least once a month for regulation, but more often if necessary. And then ancillary services, music therapy, massage therapy, they are available as and when appropriate. One area which I see a little gray zone is what we call as inpatient hospice. It's also called GIP or general inpatient. So there are different levels of care for hospice. When you send somebody home, that's a routine home care. That's what we call it. General inpatient or inpatient hospice is a special level of care which is reserved for patients who have such catastrophic symptoms that cannot be managed at any other level. To give you an example, cirrhosis liver patients with portal hypertension with massive GI. Okay? They start throwing up, they have been educated that's going to happen, they freak out. Yes, we can bring them in, we can put them in the hospital, get them comfortable. That would be a GIP. Somebody with uncontrolled seizures. Now, we have seizure protocols at the hospice where we manage patients with active seizures. But there can be situations where the seizures are uncontrolled. Yes, we can put them in for, IV infusion or very controlled seizures. Uncontrolled catastrophic pain. Sometimes patients can have pain crisis. And, you've done everything for some reason, you're not able to control it. Yes. So they are far in between. So if somebody is dying, actively dying, that is not considered appropriate for inpatient hospice because once you admit somebody to hospice, this is an expected outcome. So you just can't say because the person is dying, they should be inpatient hospice. I see that happening sometimes when I'm reviewing records, and that still will be under your DRG. So if there was somebody who was, say for example, somebody who has uncontrolled pain, metastatic cancer, uncontrolled pain, you decided that they should be on hospice, they are not ready to go and you want to send them to inpatient hospice. Technically, you have to discharge them from your service, you have to admit them to inpatient hospice, and then hospice takes over from there. You will still stay the attending, but then the goals of care would be different. Admission to GIP has to be approved by our branch manager, Brenda, who is right there, and of course, I have to also, if it's one of the patients in my territory, I have to do it for Dr. Bharadwaj has to approve as well. One of the things I just want to mention is when you give prognosis to family members, you would be amazed how often they confront me in the nursing home. Dr. Dale said the patient is going to live for a week. How come it's been 10 days and he's not dead? So what do I say? I say, Dr. Dale is very smart, I'm not. But the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine makes recommendations to physicians. When you are giving prognosis to family members, do not give a definitive prognosis. Give them a prognosis of hours to days, days to weeks, weeks to months, and follows you up. I have never found that strategy not to work. When you say days to weeks, it could be 5 days, it could be 2 weeks. And that's the truth, no matter how we feel that this patient is dying and may not survive long enough, we have been proved wrong too many times. So we have stopped giving any definitive prognosis. So it doesn't make you less smart to say, I don't know. It's literally in God's hands. It's the truth, But I would say in my assessment today, it's days to weeks or weeks to months, whatever you feel is appropriate. I just included the signs of impending death so that if you see that, you know this patient is very close, you're looking at hours to days, and those patients, I'm not going to repeat them. One more point I want to spend just 1 more minute talking about is comfort medication. So, what I often see is, all right, decision is made to admit to hospice, stop all medicines, just put Roxanol, Lorazepam, or Comfort Meds, and go home. You know what? There are other medicines in Roxanol, Lorazepam, which are also used for comfort. To give you an example, somebody who has CHF, Lasix is comfort for them. Okay? So do not take them off diuretics. Send them home. If they're able to swallow, keep them on their diet. If somebody has AFib and their heart rate is controlled on Xyrem or metoprolol, send them home on that as long as they can swallow. If they decline and are not able to, the hospice staff will take care of that. Now, aspirin is not comfort. Anticoagulants would not be comfort. In addition, you're going to have to stick them to do their PPI-NARS, Similarly, in COPD patients, nebulizers are comfort. They can't breathe. You can give them anything, but if they need the nebulizers. So when you are reviewing their medications at the time of discharge, please spend a minute looking at their medical condition and their symptoms and seeing, is this medication going to help control their symptoms or not? And if you think yes, keep them on it. Don't stop everything. Because very often when they go home, we have to resume those medications. Because we realize, well, this person is going to be around for a while. Why do you want to cut short their life and improve and make the quality of their life good? So just give it a thought. Some medications we routinely discontinue would be like statins in somebody with heart disease. They have a benefit years down the road. When you're saying a life expectancy of 6 months or less, it's kind of a no-brainer that you don't want to keep a statin. You can discontinue vitamins, If, however, there are patients who will fight with you and die and say, I want my vitamin. I want this. We've had patients who take juice plus 2 tablets 3 times a day. This is what I have survived because of it. Perfectly fine. They want something which is herbal, by all means. That's fine. Anything which they feel is improving the quality of life is fine. But you can say, this is a medication which I don't think is really necessary. So vitamins, calcium, stuff like that you can discuss. Parkinson's patients, please don't discontinue their Sinemet if they can swallow. Do not do. You're all internists, if somebody's been on Sinemet long enough and you stop it cold turkey, what's going to happen? They can go into a neuroleptic malignant syndrome. That's a known complication of that, But other than that, the problem is somebody who's been on medications like Sinemet, you stop it, they can't swallow. And they die a very miserable death. because it also affects their ability, their swallowing muscles. So as long as they can swallow, just charge them on Sunimet. It's okay. Once they decline, we can take care. The last thing I want to spend a minute on is pain medication. We have a hospice formulary, and we have preferred drugs. So for most patients, if they're able to swallow and you feel their life expectancy is going to be weeks to months, you can just send them on, say, if the pain is, mild to moderate, using hydrocodone or oxycodone. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to do Roxanol for that. You don't have to. But if you anticipate that in the next 3 to 5 days the patient is going to decline and they won't be able to swallow, then we need the Roxanol for sure. Morphine is a preferred drug, except in one situation where somebody has CKD. If somebody has CKD stage 4 or 5, morphine is contraindicated, because morphine is metabolized to morphine 3 and 6 glucuronide, which accumulates in patients with CKD, and it can precipitate seizures, delirium, And if you see a patient with delirium, that's a very painful death. So this would be an iatrogenic painful death, which we want to avoid. So that's the reason our preferred drug in CKD 4 and 5 is hydromorphone or Dilaudid, which is available in 2 milligram tablets, 4, 8 milligrams. When you compare morphine and hydromorphone, 1 milligram of morphine, 1 milligram of hydromorphone is equal to 5 milligrams of morphine. If you just remember that, you will be fine. As a for starter's sake, 1 milligram of Dilaudid is equal to 5 milligrams of morphine. So when you send out a patient with Roxanol, our standing order is 20 milligrams per milliliter of the Roxanol. That's the strength. Not 5 milligrams per mil, not 10 milligrams per 5 mil. We use 20 milligrams per mil. I'll put this down in the handout, so you don't need to worry about it. And it's 0.25 cc, which is like 5 milligrams every 4 hours as needed. If you were to use Dilaudid, the patient can swallow, you can use 1 milligram every 4 hours as needed. Or you can have the pharmacy make a liquid, and it's 1 milligram per mil, and it's 1 milligram every 4 p.m. Just remember, if you have a patient who has CKD 4 or 5, please do not send the script for us. The other meds and their doses and other conditions obviously use like anxiety, nausea, vomiting, constipation, what are preferred drugs. I just listed them there. You can read them at your leisure if you have any. With your booklet, I kept my card. I kept the card for some people. If anybody would like one and didn't get, I can give you another one. My cell phone, I hand wrote on it. If you ever have a patient where you feel that they're appropriate for hospice, but we are not admitting them, but you feel that they should be admitted, call me. We had a patient with Dr. Radian a few weeks ago where he felt very strongly this patient was appropriate. When my hospice nurse had assessed, I had told her the patient was not appropriate. When he called me, he gave me some additional information, and we found that the patient was very appropriate. She died in 2 weeks. So, again, you have the skill sets and the knowledge on your law. If you feel they're appropriate, and, just call me. I'll be more than happy to review the data and get you where you have to go. Okay? All right.
I need to add another.
Yeah, you don't even have to call. You may have just to
find me on my phone. So just let me know if you have any issues. And discussions about hospice can be a little challenging, with especially some family dynamics that we have. If you do need help on those conversations, I always help. So you can always reach us with regards to eligibility and the process.
I did put eligibility criteria for the different diagnoses. These are just guidelines. Remember that. So it's not by all means totally, all inclusive. You may have a patient who may not fit the mold of one diagnosis, but may have multiple things going on: a bad heart, bad lungs, functional decline, and you feel that they are dying. They've been in the hospital multiple times. just let us know. We'll definitely help you guys, get them on board. Anybody have any questions I can answer? Sorry, I took a little longer than I anticipated. Any questions, anything I can answer? Thank you so much. If you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you for showing that before. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. So we forgot to do our reflection. Our reflection for today is be more concerned with your character than your reputation. Because your character is who you really are, and your reputation will follow. So as you go throughout your day, think about your character, and that will establish you as an amazing provider. Sorry. Okay, so we have Jamie here with us. Which one did you start with?
Can you start with the Word document?
We've got two. I've got a sample and a step offers.
Sample. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Jamie. I'm just going to give you, there's just two things I want to go over and then just some information. First thing is a clarification that you guys might see a little bit, you might have seen in the last couple of weeks and you're going to see more of. This clarification is basically asking, this is saying that the ED provider has documented sepsis in the chart. And due to documentation of sepsis or severe sepsis or shock by, let's say, Dr. Brown, the ED provider, do you concur with this diagnosis of severe sepsis on admission? And if so, what's the clinical rationale or supporting? So on this one, let's say the chart was found that they were diabetic, they had COPD, and they had UTI. Clinical findings, their white count really wasn't elevated, their vital signs were pretty much stable. ED provider put severe sepsis, UTI, and acute kidney injury. And in your H&P, we see that you have acute kidney injury and UTI, and your blood cultures were negative, and they're on IV antibiotics. So when we're looking at this, we're saying we don't see the criteria in there. So do you agree or not? If you don't agree, then all we're asking is sepsis ruled out. Do not concur, either one. If you do agree, then, yes, agree with severe sepsis, and then you would say, well, they had a lactic acid of 5, or they had encephalopathy with this, or whatever your reason is, your clinical judgment. Like I said, you're going to see this for severe sepsis, septic shock, or sepsis. So if you're the attending on a chart, and there's a consulting physician, and they're documenting sepsis, and you haven't, that's when you're going to see this. So then, the next one, the encephalopathy.
Sorry, I have to find my mouth.
So every year in October, there's coding changes. So there's 230 brand new coding changes that are coming up in 2 weeks. Encephalopathy is one of them. So the coding changes, and we have to have the specific type of encephalopathy if it's documented. So if there is encephalopathy, I need to know, is it toxic? Was it, due to a poisoning or due to a drug? Is it metabolic? Was it due to their sepsis or their electrolyte imbalance? Is it sensitive encephalopathy? Is it hepatic? Is it alcoholic? If you're documenting encephalopathy, I just need to know it's due to, or the type in front of it. Okay? That's the only thing with that one. And the next one should be an Excel spreadsheet, I think.
The 2008.
Oh, I'm sorry, you can scroll down. So the encephalopathy, we've had some questions on that about, okay, well, I think, they just have dementia. So when a patient does have dementia and we're asking you guys, hey, do they also have acute encephalopathy? This is what we're looking at, the criteria to ask that question. So that, it develops rapidly, it's fluctuating, and it's reversible compared to the dementia that's totally not reversible, not emerging.
Do you want the 2018 CDMP or the sound impact?
Oh, sound impact. Okay. So all of these questions that we send you, can you scroll over, I guess? So this is the 3 months. This is 3 month data. Okay, this is each individual doctor for 3 months. So this says that, the sector CMI was increased by 9.1, and it was a financial impact of $63,000. Okay, and Heather has this, but if you scroll, continue to scroll down, this is only showing you the impact. Okay, about 60% of our queries that we send you are severity queries, which means they don't financially impact us. However, scroll all the way down to the bottom. I think that in 3 months, it's just getting more specific information, which allows us to capture that diagnosis. The diagnosis is already in the chart, just can't code it unless it's specific. So that's really all I had. The other recap was just an overall hospital recap, but this was more specific to you guys.
That is really.
So sometimes on a query, it says you want to take a progress note or discharge summary versus just answering the query.
Okay.
If you help out with that.
So I always need it in the progress note, always. I always need it in the progress note, or if your last note is your discharge summary, I need it there. It's best practice to have that documentation in your discharge summary. That way, when the auditors come, that's the first place they're looking. Okay, if it's there, they're going to leave us alone. If it's not there, then, they'll try to deny payment. So always in the progress note and or discharge summary. Best practice, so you would copy and paste and put the answer down in the query and then put it in your progress note. If you don't have time for that extra click, stick it in your progress note. I'll go back in, or somebody will go back in and add it in that query. Does that make sense? So we can complete the query on our end. If you just copy and paste that answer or put whatever your answer is in the progress note, we can do it that way. But always in the progress note, just try something.
If we don't agree with any of that we can document.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Your clinical opinion, you just document whatever, do not agree with whatever it was we're asking. And then you wouldn't have to put that in the progress note then, because, but what I would suggest is, let's say that we were asking, is the patient, did the patient have, sepsis and a second pneumonia, and you're documenting, no, the sepsis and the pneumonia was ruled out. I would put that then, obviously we're getting that from the continued documentation. In your next progress note, I put something, pneumonia has been ruled out. So that it's in more than one place in the chart. That's a key thing with audits, is that if it's only in one place in the chart, they're going to attack that. If it's in more than one place in a few days, we have a better chance.
If it's in our note, is that sufficient, or does it also be like a diagnosis and sound connector for you?
So that would be different. That's just for the billing.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, this is fancy for the hospital desk. We want them to be the same anyways.
Okay, so that's all I have.
Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Here's some of the individuals. Can I just kind of piggyback onto something? So we do want to answer the query, just because that is part of our quality measure. So that's part of your quality metric. So if you're not answering it, and like you said, just putting it in your documentation and not answering the query, that will go against you. So we do have to answer the query also.
You guys are doing a great job.
You are. You really are.
Yeah. I mean,
But I
get to report every day, and they're constantly, what was on the day before is off the next day.
Yeah.
So you guys are answering them, so it's just, I appreciate it. The hospital appreciates it. So
Oh,
$300,000
yeah.
is appreciated.
Yeah.
That's great. That's just our group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only 3 months.
3 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
We have the impact. Just some announcements, mark your calendars. I know that I've been sending out some Evite notifications. Our sound picnic is on Saturday at Park at 3 o'clock. Bring a dish to share. We want to try to come up with a rain plan if it rains, but we don't have one yet. So suggestions are welcome.
Right now, so it's sunny and cloudy.
Sunny and cloudy, so we will have a sunny and cloudy. How does that work? Sunny and cloudy at the same time?
Yeah, probably sunny.
Okay. And next Thursday is the Biz Dash in St. Louis. Sound is running as a team. You see my cool little logo. I created it. Thanks very much. Marketing made it happen. I sent them my brainchild and they made it happen, but I think my little running man is really fun. Myself, Kay, Ben, and Mary Lee are doing the run. In various stages of walking / running / sauntering, whatever. I think that Dr. Harris will be the fastest. Reminders. BPCI Advanced. You're starting to get your emails now. I've heard some questions say like, hey, other people are getting their email. I haven't gotten mine. Is something wrong? I don't think that there's anything wrong. I think it's that they're sending them out as they're ready. I don't think that they were waiting to make sure that they had everybody's completed before they started sending out for signatures. So you will probably all be getting them at different times. Please remember that it's 2 separate emails. You have an action item for each of those emails, and it has to be done as soon as you're able. And otherwise, like what, we have to take off the schedule? We would have to take you off the schedule after October 1st if that doesn't get done. Your EPIC treatment teams. Please remember to change the treatment teams in EPIC if you're coming off service. I know that this was an ask earlier, and I think that we've gotten out of the habit of it. So please make sure that you're changing those teams. You should have your sign-outs in advance to make sure you know who you're changing your teams to. And that way it helps that Tuesday morning rush with everybody. Everybody knows that Tuesday is the hardest, so that can really help us out. Thank you so much. Check your red folders. I've been seeing lots of people come in and peek at their folders. Thank you so much. Keep it up because we still have to keep up on our paperwork. And if you have something signed, don't leave it in the red folder. I don't check there because if I had to, I would just be standing there checking those folders constantly. So I don't check there unless I have a reason to. So please, put it either in my tray next to the printer or just set it on my desk and let me know, or even sending me a text message to let me know where you put it or that it's there. Because otherwise, I've come across some signed items in red folders when I'm putting new items in there that I hadn't sent yet. So please make sure that you're not leaving them in there. The patient questions cards for patient experience. They are attached to the back of the patient brochures with all of your lovely photos on them. Please be referring to them. We'll talk about that a little bit later in patient experience. Reminder, 1 East is closed. You may not go there. You may not use the computers. You may not use anything down there unless you have a patient in that unit. That unit's off limits. Flu shot time. Make sure that you are making time and making arrangements to get your flu shot. After October 31st, if you have not provided me written proof that you've had a flu shot, either at St. Mary's or with your primary physician or at a Walgreens Take Care clinic, then you have to wear a mask until you get it done. And that is a hospital protocol, not ours. So just so you know.
And flu shots start next week at the hospital.
The 24th.
So just do it while you're here.
So the postings have been out. The specific times are going to be in the newsletters. They were in the most recent 2 newsletters. So if you want to refer to times on when they're going to be available, you can refer to that. But I will keep it in the newsletter until the flu shots offered at St. Mary's are over.
Hey, okay. You have you first. Sure.
Yep.
All right. So stroke committee update. So we're at the stroke committee meeting we had last week. So a couple things. We had some outliers in terms of some misses, and so I kind of want to summarize which I think are just easy solutions. I mean, things like if you're ordering an MRI to evaluate for stroke, put them on aspirin. You can always stop the aspirin afterwards, if there's no stroke or, it's been ruled out, or you can always stop it. But it's kind of like chest pain. A lot of times, for chest pain, put them on aspirin. Same thing. If a stroke is in your differential, if you're ordering an MRI to evaluate for stroke, put them on aspirin from the get-go. What's happening is there was a fallout. The patient had the MRI. they did not start the aspirin, but then neuro came by a couple days later, said that there was a stroke, was too small for the MRI. And so then we, fell out because they were on the aspirin in the first place. So, so basically, start the aspirin. If stroke is anywhere in a differential, use the stroke order set. So one thing I want to emphasize is that there are two order sets for stroke, in case you did not know this. There's the admission, and then there's if a stroke identified after admission. So if they're coming through the ER, dizziness, vertigo, weakness, right-sided, slurred speech, whatever, it's the admission order set. If, however, they've been admitted, let's say they had, an ortho procedure and had stroke after, that would then be after admission order set. So I just want to make sure you guys know there is a difference. Anyone who has been diagnosed with a stroke needs to be on the stroke order set. It's just the Joint Commission rules has to be done. Got that covered. So neurochecks. This is another thing that came up. So Joint Commission actually does not require neurochecks. What they do require is if you order something like neurochecks, it has to be done properly and completely. So a full neurocheck by the nurses is time-consuming and labor-intensive, and the documentation is really ridiculous when they show you everything that you got to document. And you're asking them to do it every 4 hours with 7 to 8 other patients who are also stroke rule-outs on that floor. So definitely within the first 24 hours of admission, neurochecks every 4 hours is appropriate. After that, just think about, can it be extended maybe every 8 hours? Maybe they don't need, maybe it's been ruled out and they're just intoxicated, they can stop the neurochecks or something. But just kind of think about it. Obviously it's patient dependent, what you feel comfortable with, but just kind of keep that in mind that it's, in terms of using resources and the nurses, it is very time intensive. And if they don't do a complete neurocheck, then we get dinged because they didn't follow the order that's been in place. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're rounding. I did talk with Amy, team lead for 4 West, to remind the nurses, to also bringing it to you guys during the MDR rounding, on their checklist, things that they should bring up. They, should be able to bring up, hey, they've been here for 5 days, we're still doing neurochecks every 4 hours. Do we still need that? Probably not, So just kind of keep that in mind. All right.
Also, in case they're out of the ICU, sure the aspirin doesn't fall off.
Okay.
Be careful. Maybe their orders quickly fall off.
And remember, aspirin can be done per rectum also. So on admission especially, they can't swallow. So, all right, we'll move on. WRVUs. So, this is like a little seesaw, picture. We've talked about this. We've seen this. Maybe it's the pattern we've seen for at least a year now. It's, 1 week goes up, next week goes down, up, down, up, down. And obviously there are different weeks, different patients, but there is definitely a pattern to it. So, something just kind of look at your billing, look at your coding. I know Nadine's going to talk a little bit about some billing stuff, but it's definitely the seesaw effect that's been going on for the past year. And again, it's not saying it's right or wrong, and it's just a pattern that's seen that you would think that at least it'd be a little bit tighter, in terms of the up down. But just something to kind of keep in mind. You can look at the schedule, see which weeks that you're working on in terms of looking at your billing. ACP, we've kind of dropped down a little bit for the past couple of weeks. Our numbers of ACPs has gone down. I don't know why, or if it's patient population, if it's less acuity. But I just want to kind of put it back to the forebrain of everyone. ACP discussion. Again, this is not talking about just code status. This is talking about treatment goals, natural progression of disease. Who should get ACP discussion? We still use the CNA score over 10 to kind of trigger. This is someone who should have a discussion. Someone's had a lot of admissions. If they're end stage something, end stage heart disease, COPD, dementia, you're talking about. Those are patients should have a discussion. And then clinical judgment. And then I know Sound Connect, they have the surprise question. If you think the patient's going to expire the next year, if you say yes, that's someone who should have a ACP discussion also. So just kind of keep that in mind. I don't know if there have been other barriers you guys have seen on the floors that kind of explain the decrease. I don't know. No? Okay. Just remember it, that's all. I mean, maybe it's just, we haven't talked about it, but just kind of, I was putting it back in your forebrain to remember, to do the conversation. All right, I'll make sure I'm going by, okay. So now you can jump into fun sound metrics and more data. So first, our weighted PACU. So for those, especially the new ones, weighted PACU is basically it's a mathematical equation of transition of care. Are they going to home, which is where we want them? Are they going to rehab, skilled nursing facility, LTAC? And each site gets a certain weight on the formula. So like LTAC is the highest weight. So if we send someone to LTAC, it'll cause our numbers to be much higher versus home, which is a much smaller number. So our, I know we talked before, our goal is always home, and you can see May was our peak, and since then we had great decline. We're kind of, plateauing a little bit. So September we're at 22.6. I think August we're about 24. So we still have a couple more weeks to get patients home. But just I like to show this, just to kind of show we're doing, and you guys are doing a great job of getting patients home. Just want to keep everyone updated. Continue to use the S4 model, the home health. Are you guys doing the smart phrases? Using it? Okay. We are, there's still meetings with the home health on making sure it gets done. But from your standpoint, continue to order it, especially like the front loading of the physical therapy. That's really kind of like the game changer on getting patients home with home health, every day versus, yes, Kathy.
Home health people use, but I can't. So, I don't know. I can't tell.
Right, and I don't know if that has to do with, it's hard to tell when they leave, outside of asking the patient, because once I know they put in their notes saying it's been set up, but then beyond that, it's kind of hard to tell without asking the patient. And, if you think, especially in TCC, if you think that they need it, and then definitely reach out to the home health or social worker, whatever resources.
I can't tell the plan.
Yeah. Right, and we can feed back to the home health agency, maybe improve the documentation, make it a little more clear. So we can definitely do that. Yep. So yes, we want patients to go home. If, however, you need them to go to a skilled nursing facility, we do have the high-quality nursing facilities. So this is, why do we want high quality? Lower readmission, less length of stay, patients' better satisfaction scores, at those facilities, and better outcomes. So there is a list. Hopefully you guys have that list, and if you don't, we can get you the list. I don't expect you to have it memorized. I do expect you to have it at least available on your phone. If the patient asks which place do you recommend, or for recommendations, you have the list there. You can recommend those. There is a SNF packet that the patients get. We're working on the visualization of it. It's a little confusing if you've ever seen it, but there is. We are working on, from the case manager, social worker side, to really focus on these facilities. But I definitely want to make sure you guys are aware of what the facilities are, and then also just kind of show, hey, if we're going to a SNF, let's try kind of steer them towards these facilities. All right, so this is our monthly report from the hospital. So this is our premier data. So there's a lag. I just want to always make sure this is May now. I know we're in September. So there's at least a 2 or 3 month lag. So this 30-day readmission, last time bumped up, May back down. We kind of have this again up down. I anticipate it's going to continue to improve. Since the MDRs has taken effect, I think that'll also improve the readmission. We'll see. I know this month data, the pneumonia and COPD was back up again. I don't know, Dave, if you want to do a quick plug for your COPD project.
So basically, once the patient comes in with a diagnosis of COPD, at least you could put that in the epic, so that already the patient that we kind of screen for to see what resources have, to make sure that they don't come back to the hospital especially inhalers, TCP clinics, PCP, pulmonologists, just for a CFS plan, like a safety net.
Yeah. And CASPA's been an integral part of all this. So definitely, if you have a COPD patient, let Mary Lou know, close to the Halani know. So definitely, if you have a COPD, definitely let them know. All right. What's next one?
They were asking questions. When you're plugging in or asking a question, remember that we have about 8 people listening. So our little microphones only reach so far. So if you have something that we want you to like either stand there with a little microphone, but just try to project a little bit because I was trying to type out what they were saying to them in the little chat box. So I know it's gonna take a little bit just to get used to, but that's how we're rolling now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think next is the like to say next. I think
so. I can get it to go.
There you go. Yeah. So again, this is May data. I don't have much report on this. I mean, this is kind of an FYI. Again, you kind of see up and down. Yeah, ideally we wanted less than 1. So it's kind of wait and see. I mean, with the NPRs, again, I anticipate to go through, but I hate the lag. It drives me crazy. So we'll move on. Oh, Kenny, right.
Hand me that thing before you turn.
Oh, okay. So we got the latest data regarding the HSAP scores. Unfortunately, we dropped from 87.5% in July to 77.2%. The threshold is 80%, and that's what's been set by Medicaid. The reason why we're freaking out and we're talking about this over and over again is because it's tied to reimbursement. In order for us to understand the reimbursement, I have a short YouTube video that explains what it's all about. And Heather, okay, thanks.
What the heck is value-based purchasing?
Oh, sorry.
In the Hospital Value-Based Purchasing Program, or VBP, CMS is paying those in the inpatient associated blah, 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 affordability, blah, 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 as well as population health and readmissions.
I have no idea.
I wasn't really listening to Mike either, so let me try to explain value-based purchasing to you.
Finally.
Taking care. So now that we've established what value means, let me talk a little bit about how the payment for value works. The government payers withhold a portion of payment to providers and facilities and set it aside for the value-based purchasing program. Hospitals and providers can earn the value, but if the goals are not reached, there could be tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars that we will not be paid for. For example, if the hospitals we do not meet our goals, we will lose 1 to 2% or $100 to $200. Now multiply that by all of our patients. Technology for adding staff. Many of these value measures are also available on the Hospital Compare website. Performance deserve. Our payments are just changing to reflect that. If each person strives to do their best and gives every patient the care and kindness they would wish for their own family, we'll be closer to maximizing value. We can all play a role in improving value by giving the best care to our patients.
Okay, I hope and I appreciate why. The next. Okay, this is kind of a duplicate, but we have a new higher studies wanted to talk about a couple of things to get hardwired, in order to improve our patient experience. One, when we get into the room, we try to sit down as visible as we can. Sometimes the room is texted, but we can try to sit down when visible. Try to use the whiteboards and update the scope of care and the physician name. And sometimes nurses don't do it, but we can do it sometimes. Managing up team members like HRNs and nurses, consultants. The use of business cards on the day of first time you see them and on discharge, just to remind them. And rounding with the nurses. And above all, try to humanize them. Next slide. So we recently sound purchased the HCAP toolkit, and so it's pretty much a questionnaire that's been added to the brochure, giving patients on the welcome brochure, giving patients on admission, and it includes a series of questions. So these are the questions that are included on the welcome brochure. And can you go back? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what happens is the hospital goes over the questions with the patient, and the aim of this is to improve patient engagement and communication, and hopefully that will help our HCAP. It was started on 3 East on 9/1, and I think it's going to be rolled out to stores.
Yeah, I mean, it's rolled out to whole floors, but data collecting is just targeting 3 East. So all patients should be getting this. I know the MPs have been talking about giving out the brochure. So, I mean, all patients should be getting these. So for everyone while you're around it, I mean, it should be brought up.
Maybe.
Yeah, but the data is going to be 3 East specifically.
Okay. And lastly, my favorite quote is, people may forget what you said and what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So if we, put this at the back of our minds, it will help get this hardwired, and hopefully our scores will stay above 80. That's it.
Thank you.
And go back to the data slide. I just want to show you, so there's a huge.
Which one?
Yeah, that. So, I'm trying to come up here. If you look at, that percentile percentage, I mean, you can see here, from July, we're 87 percentage, we only went down by 10 percentage points, but our percentile was from 88 to 20. I mean, so it's such a slippery slope that you have. So, every little bit helps, as you can see, any little bit, tick up, how they, can bring that score up. But it's such a narrow little, steep curve there.
Okay, the end.
Thank you, Dr. Handel.
All right. So I just want to give everyone an MDR update. So we're finally getting some metrics and data back on MDRs and talk about some of the changes. So since we've released the MDR, you can see on, I don't know if you can move back about that, our discharge orders before noon definitely improved. I mean, it's a huge improvement. So that's hospital data on the left to June, and then actually pulled up for the MDR metrics. I mean, basically discharge orders before noon, we're at about 55%. So that's awesome. I mean, you guys are doing a great job. So definitely keep it up. I mean, kudos to everyone for focusing on that, especially since we've been, hospitals have been overflowing last week. So definitely keep that up. It's all about communication. And also, I just want to make sure, even great job with the team service. I mean, I've been on the service, and the residents and the interns, they're doing a much better job, and I think the attending again at Hardwired with the residents. to get the discharges done before noon. So whatever you guys need to do, I know some strategies. Some people do discharge paperwork the day before. Whatever kind of works for you to be prepared for the discharge. Most of us know who's going to be discharged that next day. So whatever you do, be prepared. Same thing if you're working with residents. They can be prepared the day before. What I usually do is, if it's one intern do the orders. We'll go around with the next patient. They'll catch up to us. That way, things kind of flow and get the orders put in. So new change for in terms of the feedback. Since we rolled out with the 2.0, look at the metrics for the huddles. I mean, for the most part, they're 15 minutes. So it shows huddles are hardwired with you guys. You guys are doing a great job. I mean, you're coming in, you're prepared for the huddles to last about 15 minutes. I know there's always some, exceptions, patient care, maybe a complex patient, goes a little longer, but that's expected. But for the most part, it's definitely hardwired. So the CSN feedback form, they're going to stop doing that. I think everyone's doing a great job on the huddles. In terms of the MDR nursing feedback, it was every day. Basically it's the same pattern. It's whiteboard, it's kind of like the main thing. That's something that we're taking to the nursing leadership to work on. But for the most part, everyone's been doing a really great job with the rounding. So we're going to cut back on that to once a week, basically. Again, this is just purely feedback to you guys, hey, with the workflow, just make sure we're continuing with the process. And at the same time, anytime you want to do feedback back to the case manager or the nurses, we have the 360 feedback in the MDR forms or the forms if you want to provide feedback about the nurses, case manager if it's not a form, Mary Lou, Katie, we have them in the office. Again, it's not meant to be punitive, slap hands on the wrist, but it's meant to be feedback about how with the workflow. Excuse me. And then I think in next week or the week after, we're having our first nursing leadership committee to talk about the whiteboards and see if we can get this moving. All right, billing. So in terms of overall billing, I mean, everyone's doing a great job with, we have a lot less mischarges, duplications, which is fabulous. One scenario that kind of came up this past week that, again, when you find these, things that come up, I like to figure out, well, what happened and what do we do to prevent it. So basically, this is the situation. You got a patient, Dr. A saw on Monday, they're hospice, known that they're going to expire. Dr. A did their billing, and then overnight, the patient expired, and then Dr. B came in on Monday and took over their list. So in Epic, the patient's gone, but in SoundCheck, the patient's still there, because Dr. A didn't know the patient passed away. They couldn't do the Y, whatever, the Y code of discharge. So then what happened is the patient sat on the SoundCheck list for a couple of days, because that doctor, they did their billing, they billed all their patients, all the patients are there, but they didn't reconcile the list to see, oh, there's a patient on my list and it's not mine, to try to figure out what the situation was. So as a kind of like a measure to countermeasure for that, basically I'm asking, when you get, especially on the first day when you get a new list, when you're done with your billing, just reconcile the list. So there's two ways. Either A, look at the Sound Connect, look at your Epic list, and make sure they match. If there's any discrepancy, try to figure out, what happened and notify the provider. Or I use Brio, which I like. And on Brio, if you bill, it goes gray. If you have a patient that's not been billed, it stays white. So you can always use that. You can always just if you don't use Brio, but when you're done billing, you pick up your phone, open up Brio, pull your list down. If everything's grayed out, you're done. So you've done, everything's there. If anyone's whited out or still white, that means that it has not been billed. Well, you finish your billing, where did that patient come from? Either it's on the wrong list, or patient maybe was discharged and it was not taken out of Sound Connect. That provider needs to be notified. So I think that's kind of the one area I would say. If everyone, definitely when you get a new list, at least make sure it's reconciled once. After that, it should be pretty standard. We're not noticing as much problems. Go back one more. Sorry. So, we had a low. Last week I know it was really busy. So it's kind of silly to talk about this, especially now we've gotten busier. But, if there is a low with our census, if you have less than 16 patients, 14, 15 patients, see some psych patients. I mean, we have the psych patients. They're not really being seen. We want to have a presence there, but I understand when the hospital is really busy, the psych patients, they do go in the lower on the priority list, but we still can't forget about them. So definitely, if you have a low number of census, pick up some psych patients. If you don't have any psych patients on your list, pick up some other ones that have not been seen for a while, just so we can, from a financial standpoint, we need to maintain our numbers and it helps the practice. Plus, it is good for patient care, and at the psych hospital, having a presence there helps get more referrals. All right, now we can change. This should be 90, not 80. Sorry. No, it's high quality. Yeah, sorry. So this is something that came up, just a thought, as we're entering the holidays, with the holidays last year, our census dropped down to the 80. I mean, and we had 7 docs. I mean, that's almost like 11 patients per 12 patients at doc. Like, financially, you can't do that because it really has huge negative impacts on the practice. So what I'm kind of proposing to the group, and this is still open for discussion, I call it kind of like a reverse surge. So like if the census goes down, and this can even be on a weekend, it doesn't have to be a holiday, but if the census goes down to less than 90, basically someone goes home, all right? And, the 90, I kind of put on the side, so if there were 90 patients, then I think still like each rounder would have 16 patients and the teacher would have like 13, so it's still reasonable numbers. It's not like you're still like, when you drop down, everyone's got 20 patients, but someone gets to go home. That's why the 90 was picked as a happy middle, that for people who are working, it's not a huge burden on them, the fact that someone else went home. But I do think, we need to kind of look at this, especially with the holidays that are coming up, if the census does drop to below 90, we need to send someone home. And so the question then is, who goes home? I know there's shift counts, some people, rather work, I say rather work to be home, but they base their plan on their work, on, both financially and, personal plans. So I don't want to be like, hey, so-and-so, you have to go home. Like, I think it's best, as a group, trying to decide who wants to go home and who's okay with working, So that's something that, with the first holidays coming up, maybe get together with whoever is, the 7 docs that holiday, kind of like a backup. Like, hey, so-and-so, the census is low, I'll sit out for that, that day. And then, but also you have to be mindful of shift counts and also call. So that's another variable. So if someone goes home, there is a possibility someone may have to do 2 calls in a week. I know we try not to do, but that's something you kind of keep in mind when you meet as a group to decide who can go home. That's something kind of keep in mind.
Yeah. So we have withdrawing.
We can do that also. Yeah, that's something we talked about, having like a random drawing. If you guys want to do that, we can. If you want to have someone say, hey, a couple, if you want, I think it might be best like have if a couple people want to do it and like have a drawing amongst them. But I don't want to be like, some people count on that, so I don't want to like make people go home and that's affecting their income, But if you guys wanted to do just a random drawing for whoever, we can do that also. This is open for discussion. It's just something that came up based on last year that I think we need to have a plan in play.
But do we think the census will drop that low?
We don't know.
The process is taking over in the process?
Right. And I don't know. I hope not, but it's one of those things, just, it's a be prepared situation. Yeah. It was, Thanksgiving, it was down to the low 80s that day. Yeah.
All within the holiday.
Right. The holiday itself was a lot. They didn't want me in the hospital. So, yeah. Like, you can't breathe. That's okay. I gotta go home. Yeah. So, do you guys prefer like a random drawing, or do you want to have me as a group, or like, what do you guys thought about this?
I like to sleep in, so I was just thinking about any way we could figure out the next report.
Yeah, we can proceed based on, you can't tell for sure, but we can reverse like a trigger, like, based on, the census at, like, let's say 8 o'clock, assuming everyone's left by that point, where the census is, try to estimate how many admissions we may get. I mean, we could do it that way. If you want to have like a trigger or at least a warning the night before. I don't know if we want to make it a full, like, because what if also gets busy overnight, but we can have it as, hey, it's a possibility, kind of, keep your eye out for that.
So a lot of times these things will happen, like when I'm not there to randomly pick someone or randomly for you because I am on like a business schedule, so I'm not here on the weekends or holidays or whatever. But there are like hundreds of iPhone apps out there, and they are created for randomized selection. They're all over the place. Google has a randomizer. One of my favorites is an app. I have to ask my husband what it's called, but it's an app to choose who goes first in a game. You know how we used to roll the dice and see who, but then it's a black screen on your phone, but everybody puts a finger on it, and then after a couple of seconds, the phone will select one person's finger. So now, there's so many different kinds out there, but obviously for something like that, you would all have to be in the same place. But just be thinking about those kinds of things to help you fairly choose if there's multiple people who want to go home. Like if the people who just want to stay, let them stay out of it, but the people who want to go home, random selection. Obviously, and then later on, I will obviously find out through like Tangier and payroll. You guys will notify me that so-and-so, we sent them home or whatever, and that's something I can keep track of on the back end to try to keep that informed so we kind of keep track of as far as the history goes. But on that day, check out some fun apps.
Would that include like the teaching hospitals too, or no?
So that's part of the decision making because with the teach it's a little different because only certain providers can work with the teach. So if they go home, who's going? You can't just disseminate the teach service. So again, that's one of those variables. So it's not an easy solution. I mean, there's a lot of variables, but it is obviously. I'm hoping it doesn't occur again, but it is something that did happen that I feel like we need to have a plan just in case.
Well,
that's why I say less than 90.
I just don't think that was just that low.
I hope not.
Hope not.
Yeah, no.
But you never know.
I agree, but again, I never would have thought it would have been like that last year, and it did. So.
We put a sale outside.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah. Dr. Shockey says that rock, paper, scissors work.
Go old school. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's not something we have to decide right now. I just want to put it out there as an ongoing discussion. It sounds like if we did something like this, it sounds like right now people are leaning towards, like, who wants to go home, and then if it's multiple people, random selection. It sounds like that's kind of the way people are leaning towards. I agree with Dante. I don't think it's going to drop slow again, but you never know. And that's something we just have to be prepared. Someone leaves home.
What about it is a snapshot. What about the next day?
The next day, good question. And that's something, again, it kind of just depends on the census and the group. I mean, there's something we can discuss. I mean, it's nothing set in stone. We can have it as another reset for the next day if you want, or we can have it as that person's off for 2 days. And, the holidays are, as a 2-day block cycle. We can have them off for 2 days, or we can have it 1 day and then reset, reevaluate the next day. But then you're getting into patient distribution, that's our, patient continuity. But,
if it blows up the next day.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If it blows up, we want everyone protected and stuff, so. Okay. All right, Nadine.
So going into some of our billing, I was actually doing a deep dive, looking for something else, and we did notice that, again, going into the split shared service billing, some of it is still getting a little convoluted and getting mixed up. So to be mindful of everybody's time, I did include here some of the documentation that is required for the split bill sharing with the APPs. but we can go past this and we'll go directly to the billing. So if you have any questions, because there is certain criteria for your documentation for billing for a split shared visit, you can go on to the next one also. So, like I said, the documentation is crucial to the accuracy of it. The physician and the APP, I said NPP, I'm sorry, APP must document their portion of the encounter. So each person has to have their own documentation. They can be separate or together in an addended note. It doesn't matter either way. So those are examples right there of what's appropriate.
I can send this PowerPoint out as well.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just do that.
So the biggest part is the next slide. So the billing order of the selection. When the patient is being billed in Sound Connect, it doesn't matter who does their billing first. What does matter is that the APP is going in and selecting the CPT code when the provider who has gone in and seen the patient and is going to do their split bill shared billing, they must change the APP, where the APP using is, to the YP code. And then under your name is where the CPT code needs to be attached. This is where we're kind of having some difficulties, because what is happening is we're leaving the CPT code under the APP, and then under the physician's name is we're putting the YP code. When you're doing that, you are not getting credit for that stay at all. The complete credit for the stay is still going to the APP. So you've basically done all that work, and you're billing for nothing, basically. So the next one is an example, and it just shows that, you definitely have to have your CPT code next to your name. So when you're going in and doing your billing, make sure you're changing your APP to the YP and putting the CPT code under your own name.
Anytime you have a code as a Y, basically means there's no billing.
Right.
You have like non-billable rounding is YR.
Sign off is why.
Right. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yep.
If you want to do the.
So and then one other item, I know that I had addressed this at our last team meeting about your quality bonuses. I wanted you to know that I'm still working on them. There's been just a couple of little glitches in clarity of when and how it's being paid, but I want you to know we are working on it, so I will give you an update as soon as I hear back how it's going to be done. Okay.
And it can be so will that agency take for it, right?
Correct. So, and that's part of the issue, because we're looking at whether it's going to be paid quarterly or annually, because unfortunately one of the contracts does say annually. So that's what we have to clarify. We're working with the hospital to see how we're able to invoice the hospital and then get you all paid. So we are lagging, and it will be trued up. When it's trued up, it will be all the way through, depending on how it gets paid. You're not going to lose out on any of that money.
You will. Transitional care update. So I actually have some more news, hot off the press on this. So we went through a time window where transitional care, there's like a 2-week wait to get an appointment, which is defeats the purpose of the TCC clinic. The patients are actually engaged their primary care doctors before they're engaged with TCC. So we've changed the format. Now they only open up TCC appointments 1 week at a time. So you can't, schedule past that. But we are, in terms of just to remind you on who to refer to the TCC, high-risk readmission, CNA score over 16, or someone you feel needs a really close follow-up after discharge, can't get into a PCP or does not have a PCP. The structure, the transitional care has been working great. I mean, in terms of the decreasing readmission, taking off in terms of scheduling. So as part of the hospital initiative, we're trying to expand it to 5 days a week. So with that is now, it's officially as of September 26th, it'll be this new schedule. So basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it'll be part of the IM clinic. And then Saturday, there's no IM clinic on Saturday. Friday. So, Friday. there's no IM clinic on Saturday also. But Friday, they have no IM clinic. They only have some specialty clinics. So if we want to have TCC 5 days a week, we would need to have one of the NPs go to the clinic. But we are changing it. Right now it's Friday afternoon, which is when the ER is busiest and less support to help. So we're going to move it to the morning between 10 and 12. That way the ER is less busy from the NP standpoint. There's more help, social worker, pharmacy help, assistance that's available during the day. And also we're cutting back, it'll be about 3 to 4 patients on that Friday time slot. So that will take effect September 26th. Off the breath.
We're not responsible for September 26th.
Was that?
We're not responsible.
Right. September 26th is out, and anything beyond except for Friday, yes. Yes, it is.
And one thing, I did not include it in my slides, but I did send out about the TCC clinic billing site. So I hope everybody did get their email. This is for everybody who did. So there is a separate site that you do the billing for the TCC clinic.
Just like we have the psych hospital site, and TCC has its own site as well. So there's the SSM, like St. Mary's Hospital, the St. Mary's site, and then there's the St. Mary's TCC.
So when you, and unfortunately, you'll have to add all the demographics on the patients in the TCC site. They won't auto-populate like the HM site. And once you add them in, it's just like with psych, you do your billing, and then you have to sign that patient off. Guys, any questions?
Another question about the TCC clinic. I was talking to Becca, the head nurse there, said, the internal medicine clinic is going to take over. And she said something about, well, 2 or 3 times a year carnivals will be gone, but I don't know.
I mean, that's when, yes. So Kathy's asked about when Dr. Kornblum's gone for TCC. And that's something we're still in discussion. So it's either will we figure out the staffing. I mean, we're still trying to. It's in discussion, but it would affect. It sounds we wouldn't like revert back to the old ways or anything like that. So we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So. All right. So this happened last week. So this, there was an already project for the hospital. This is now a hospital surge. This is not down surge plan. This is the hospital surge. So basically, they came out with a hospital plan: green, yellow, red. Obviously, red is, oh my gosh, we're going to explode with patients. And that happened last week, as you can tell. I mean, we had a lot of patients in the ER waiting for beds. So there's different levels. Really, I mean, green, you guys continue what you're doing. You guys are doing a great job. Continue your MDR huddles, rounding, discharges. When we're in yellow status, it's more just a heightened awareness that, hey, we're approaching capacity. Be mindful of get patients moving, discharge. So focus on discharge as soon as possible. When they're red, it's basically expedite patient discharge as quickly as possible. So try, if you need to see them before huddle, get discharged, by all means do that. Case manager and the hospital are more lenient on vouchers and passes. So whatever we can do to get patients out of the hospital. So, and also, if you have patients in the ER, make sure you round on those as well. But really, from your standpoint, I get an MI on text in the morning, say, hey, we're red bed status. I'll let you guys know during the huddle, and then you just kind of go from there. But really, I get focused on get your discharges. Whenever, on Friday or seeing patients like, oh, when can I leave? I'm like, now. We have patients in the ER waiting. We're full. We have patients in the ER. Whatever you need to do, call your mom. Get her here now, so you can get out. So whatever, that's the message you need to send to the patients. Not, oh, after lunch sometime. It's like that. So, and then I did have something to add. It's a separate.
That's at the very end.
Okay.
Johannes.
Before we get to sorry. 15th and 16th, that week of October, there's a value stream analysis. So basically, once a year, a committee sits to look at all the projects that should be done from the lean for next year. All right. So that's happening in October. So, like I did with the NCRs, I'm going to ask you guys for feedback. What's working, what's not working, barriers, gaps. This could be anything that you do on the floor in the hospital. So, I'll send you guys emails. Email me back anything, feedback about, like I said, things you like, don't like, whatever it is. So that way we can bring it back to the committee, and then we can kind of see where we can plug that in. If we can, make as a project or some area of focus. So I'll send you guys emails out, so please send feedback. All right, now you're on it.
Thank you. All right. So for this month's focus on transitional care, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce a project that Dr. Vadian and I are kind of spearheading under SOUND under the National NCIS National Clinical Innovation Session. And what it is we're looking at a project looking at patient activation, patient engagement. So to briefly define that, emphasizes the patient's willingness and ability to kind of take independent actions to manage or self-manage their own health and care. And we're using certain activation measures, which I've listed here, kind of teach back. I think that said touch back, but that's not correct. Teach back, giving them a certificate. This is it right here. At the end of their stay, if they're able to answer just a few questions on there as far as they can tell us what their problem was, when their appointment for their TCC is, where is their appointment, how are they getting there, and what their medications are. So just in quick summary, we're looking at patients who are least activated, right? So activation is not all or nothing thing, it's kind of a scale. We decided that, okay, if patients don't have a primary care doctor, they're 40 years old, they have multiple comorbidities, that's probably the least activated you could be. So we're looking at people with no PCP, and then using whether after we use these activation measures on them throughout the hospital stay, using as a proxy or as a surrogate to see if they come to their appointment to the TCC to say, okay, their activation has increased. Okay, good. And so how do we measure that, right? It's difficult to kind of objectively do that. But basically, I'm going to ask your help in that if you have patients that don't have PCP, that you kind of start using these activation measures on them. And then at the end of your stay, sorry, I'm getting a bunch of text and trying to look at my slides. Where was I? Yeah, so identifying those patients that don't have PCPs, using these activation measures on them throughout their stay, and then at the end, you personally, as the hospitalist, kind of presenting them with a certificate if they are able to answer the questions correctly. And then in the discharge summary, I'm going to create a discharge summary template where you're going to note which activation measures you use, whether they ended up getting a diploma or not. Did you use motivational interviewing? What was their motivation? That kind of stuff will be listed in the discharge summary. And that's really basically it. It's going to roll out on October 1. If you have any questions, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Perfect timing for a barrage of text.
Patient activation, communication. There you go. The key things for today.
It's 3:30.
Yeah, 3:30.
We finished at 3:30. We finished in 90 minutes. All right. Okay, thank you everybody who dialed in. We'll go ahead and end the meeting now. We will have the recording available on the YouTube site as soon as I can figure that out.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather and Dr. Peter Emerson.
Thank you, Dr. Jeremy, Sammy, Sammy.
Yeah, that was a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Bye.
I have an idea. I mean, I have to wait till they get done anyway, so